Nate Bomberg, you know the deal. This is where I yell and scream about shit. And lately, I don't know if you know, it's Monday, by the way. It's Monday. This is our final week of our series. You know, we like to do 3 weeks, 4 weeks on, a week off. For my mental health, because watching politics drives me nuts. I also started a job today. Hooray for me. Or Friday, so hooray for me. Things are good, I think. I haven't gotten fired yet. No, I love it. But anyway, so, you know, I'm trying to think about what to talk about today. You know, I was working today, pretty focused. Really wasn't on Facebook, wasn't on Twitter, wasn't on, you know, some of my websites that I go to. I really didn't watch a lot. But, you know, right when I came home, I decided, oh, come on, you got to be kidding me. You can't be doing that while I'm on the damn live. Turn off. All right. So, you know, so I pop open a couple folks and I start looking at their Twitter feed, and just kind of right after I got done with work, I started looking at it while I was watching TV because I was kind of tired. And look, I promise I'll get to the point. And of course, you know, I'm seeing Juan Williams pop up. Juan Williams, you know, he's a Fox contributor and he's just lighting it up. I mean, like let me just read these headlines quick. I'll get it. Look, I'm going to talk about the end game. I always talk about the end game, and then I'm going to talk about the midterms, and this is going to play into it. And I want to touch on this Juan Williams stuff because this is kind of the whole, you're starting to see this, you know, even the pundits are starting to call what I've been saying for a while. And I'm not, you know, again, I'm not a prophet. I know that sounds stupid, but I'm telling you, like, this shit, it's so obvious to me, and some of the folks that are in the press aren't calling it out. And so when I see other folks calling it out exactly like I said it was, it makes me feel good, like I'm onto something. I mean, again, we all kind of know, but when the mainstream media is kind of ignoring the obvious, it's really frustrating. So anyway, so I'm going to talk about the end game real quick, and then I'll hit up Juan Williams. But real quick, just to touch on what he's been doing, 321, Juan Williams, GOP plays the race card on Ketanji Brown Jackson. 328, Juan Williams, the GOP shows its true face, and he has a front page with frickin' Rick Scott, and he talks about the plan that he had going for a while that I talked about several episodes ago. And then he kind of ends with today, he puts this blistering op-ed about how the GOP is no longer interested in governing. I'm going to go through that because he just hits every point that I've been trying to talk about. And look, if you're watching this and you're thinking, I hate the GOP, yeah, I do right now because they're not making any sense. They're not interested in governing. And I'd rather have a party that was interested in governing than one that's kind of sycophanting, you know, all over Trump, if that's even a word. You know, the present progressive of fucking just being all up his ass. And that whole kind of top down, you believe in a leader that lies. Now all of a sudden the whole party's consumed with lies, political lies that are filtering into our schools and everything else. It's fucking nuts. So yes, right now I do not like the GOP, and that's why I'm picking them apart. I kid you not. The Democrats suck too at certain things, but I'm telling you right now, at least most of those folks are in the reality realm and not, you know, again, there's no way Trump would have got through the Democratic primary. Anyway, so his last, you know, again, I'll go through some of the points on there, which he kind of succinctly says what I've been trying to say for since Joe Biden was elected, before he was elected, and just about how the party has just kind of fell to this weird, you know, battle for media and attention as opposed to actually governing. So anyway, you know, when you talk, I don't know what, my eye's twitching now. Told you I have these mini strokes when I'm on here. You know, when I talked about before what the end game is, that's what I care about. When you think about policy, what's the end game? What's your goal for this policy? So whatever your beliefs are, when you're thinking about government and how it affects your lives, you know, we want freedom, we want all this stuff, these cliches, but what's the end game? What are the party's end game? And part of what I've been saying, where you can see their end game, is how they lay out their agenda. And if they're laying out their agenda, they don't have one, then it's really hard to see where their end game, and then they can fall to prey to whatever the fuck they're falling to. And like this article will articulate way better than I do, is that they're consumed with this kind of feeding the right wing extremism that gets them elected. They're just consumed with it. And so they're doing whatever they can to say outrageous things and get that, you know, click, because that's how they feel they're getting their support. It's fucking sick. Anyway, then I'm going to kind of just roll into the midterms. I mean, this is all just part of the strategy, and it's why Democrats are going to lose, because they're playing on fears, they're playing on stupidity, they're playing on the tribalness, and it works. And then, I want to go over this article. So look, I don't want to go long tonight. I really don't. I'm kind of tired. And when you kind of jump back in and out of politics, as I said before, I like to do that. I'm okay not to be completely consumed with every single waking story, because nobody is, and it's hard to follow. And obviously, I want to be a pundit. This is kind of punditry. It's ghetto punditry, and I want to share my opinion. But my whole point of this is to point out and change hearts and minds. And so, until we kind of understand what the fuck's going on, that's not even possible. So this is like an educational fucking, promotional event, really, to say, look, here's what the fuck's going on. This is the state of the world, and you have to, you don't have to believe me. Go out there and look at your sources. You're going to see this stuff's true. So anyway, let's start with the end game. Again, I laid that out in the beginning right there in my preamble. That's really, there's not much more I have to say other than, the Democrats have a fucking platform. There's an end game for where they want to go with the country. You may not agree with it. You may not agree with, philosophically, whatever, based on your understanding of, socioeconomics or whatever it is, whatever your political philosophy, you may not agree with, but you can say what they believe in. And if you just say, tax and spend, I'm just going to ignore you, because that's a marketing term to capture all the negativity and what their real agenda is, which is to invest in the American people and kind of what they want to see the results of what we're spending our tax dollars are. That's how I look at the Democrats. They're like, all right, let's get some programs that actually work for us, not just throwing into the military. And I'm not saying they're doing everything correctly, by the way. What is the GOP's plan? It's to serve their donors and the rich. By the way, Democrats have their wing that's exactly the same. I'm not saying they're all that way. And I'm not saying the Progressive Caucus is the end-all be-all either. I don't like this idea of center. What I like the idea of is pragmatic solutions. And if that happens to fall on the left, the right, or the center, then fuck it. So there's all kinds of different, and that's the beauty of having a party. You should have differences. It's okay to have, you don't have to be a monolith. But the GOP has decided to be a monolith, and their end game really isn't defined. They haven't laid out their platform. They know how to divide and get you excited about those wedge issues. Oh, their tax and spend. Oh, their, the abortion thing's always going to have it's always going to pull a certain amount of people that no matter what you ask, if you say, are you a one-issue voter? They'll say no. But then you take abortion off the table and they have everything else. They're not going to go for it. They are there's a lot of folks that are one-issue voters, and they kind of tie all their values around that core component, and everything else is kind of ancillary, it seems. I swear to God, that's a real thing. And so when you have that kind of, that monolithic thought process, along with this strong man that comes in that preaches lies, and they kind of forget their plan, and they just look at defending him because that's a full-time job. They lose sight of where they want to go with the country, and it becomes this weird kind of amalgamation of kind of idiocracy, where you're having, people believe in symbols and talking about how, process is important and also shoot the messenger kind of shit, as opposed to what the actual result of is. For instance, the first thing they're going to ask if somebody's, if there's a political issue against or there's some kind of issue against one of their tribe, is they're going to say, well, who's saying that? Is it someone that got fired? Is it a Democrat? So they lost sight of the end game because they're playing this. They're playing true politics. There's no there. There's no is. It's just empty vapor to get us excited and say, look, those guys are bad. We have to get rid of them. And so, to my second point, that plays right into the midterms. I mean, that gets people excited. I know, in this article that I'll kind of sum up with, and by the way, I'm totally being lazy by running through this article, but I'm telling you, I'll post the link in the final version of this, and I'm telling you, he basically walks through almost all my fucking podcasts, what I've been saying about how, there's nothing there. There's no end game. They've lost sight of it. They've been consumed by media. And this right here, that's going to help them in the short term. That's going to help them get elected. And all they need to do is continue to focus on this dumbass short-term shit that we're buying. And I say we because this is my country. I'm not the one that's buying this shit, but I'm certainly not, I'm certainly part of this, and it's a we thing. And so we're fucking ourselves. And if you've got neighbors that are sitting there not thinking about this, or friends, or you're that person and you're thinking, you know what, I hate Democrats. Why? Because they want to do things for you, because they want to spend the money in ways we can use it, maybe help poor people, maybe lower housing costs, maybe obviously inflation sucks. There's all kinds of reasons. I'm not going to get into this economic thing right now about that, because there are strong indicators that if you cut out revenue, you're going to have some kind of weird inflation. Also, when you have a pandemic after that, and there wasn't really an injection. I'm not going to get into it, but there's all kinds of reasons of why inflation's happening. And Joe Biden certainly could, he can take some of the pain, or he can take some blame for that if you want, but that's minimal compared to actually doing something. We're talking about actually executing things that are going to work for us. And that's, I talk about this agenda, but for me, if I'm looking to kind of see where I want to go and there's no plan at all, I just don't understand how you kind of join that organization or you believe in the cause when you can't even really articulate where their end game is. And so that, though, works for the short term. And let me just kind of end. I'm going to keep it short because today was one of those days. It was crazy, and I was talking a lot on meetings and yada yada. So that doesn't mean I'm cutting you short, I promise. But I just want to, I don't want to be bullshitting you, giving you and just talking out my ass for no reason. This is really the core of everything I've been saying, and that is, we have a party right now. And this article from Juan Williams posted 4/4. He talks about the Ketanji Brown Jackson abuse again, but then he also continues to go on. Hold on. He basically talks about Ted Cruz, how when Ted Cruz was questioning this woman who's supremely qualified, he was questioning her, asking her, talking about racist baby books. And, then they actually caught him on camera scrolling through his Twitter feed, looking for mentions of himself of a pretty, deep kind of engagement that they had, that kind of, he thought he was going to get some sound bites. So, furiously looking through his Twitter feed to see mentions. And that was more important than spending time talking to a qualified candidate and asking real questions. He's looking for that soundbite. And so Juan Williams goes on to talk about this obsession for feeding this right-wing extremism that exists on social media. It also is a motivator. And as I said, that's a midterm strategy. That's the fucking strategy. It's to get the fringe excited, get you angry, and then get you to vote, because they paint this woman as soft on child pornography or whatever they're doing. I mean, he goes on to talk about that, how they kind of falsely ginned up this idea with a couple quotes to suggest that she's soft on child pornography. And that is kind of a bullet point of what, when you ask a Republican why they wouldn't vote for her, that's one of the things they would talk about. It's ridiculous that a judge in America is going to be known as, going to get that far, and all of a sudden it's going to come out, yeah, they were soft on child porn. Why? What's the point? She's a mother. It doesn't even make sense, but that's too far-fetched to even think about. There's no kind of walk down logic trail, walk down a logical path to get to a conclusion. It's all about just kind of what's it feel like? Just as a side note, they did a study. I think it was, I don't know the school, but they did, what deep fakes are? It's where they take somebody's face and they make it say whatever they want. It looks exactly like the person. So they did a deep fake with Sean Hannity, and they had him spouting liberal views to the folks that were fans of his, and they watched their views change. They followed along with Sean Hannity. And so that just tells you, it's like, these folks that have these megaphones know the power they have. They continue to lie. People follow them. And now we have all these folks that are spouting nonsense and doing it for ratings and hits, leading half the country down this crazy fucking rabbit hole of nonsense. And it does happen in both sides of the party. But I will say there's a major network, mainstreaming this shit with some ancillary fucking networks that pop up here and there. And not that's not even to talk about Ben Shapiro's empire and by the way, Ben Shapiro doesn't necessarily spew complete nonsense all the time. I've been watching, but I will say he fucking spouts the same bullshit, just kind of spins it a little bit better, makes a little bit better word salad, and doesn't go off on the fringe that often. But he still ventures there. It's like kind of like a little stroll through fucking Crazyville once in a while, where he'll argue something about transgender folks that he knows nothing about or whatever. Anyway, the point is, this whole kind of infatuation with this media presence, and you're looking at somebody who's literally trying to grow a community and trying to put myself out there and talk about my views. So call me a hypocrite, but I'm not in an elected office, and I'm also not somebody who's, advertising that I'm serving you while just kind of creating a media presence. I mean, you know exactly my agenda. But when I elect someone to the Senate, or I elect somebody to the House, I expect they're going to be public servants. And they're going to be doing their bidding. It's okay to get on social media and talk about your talking points, but to make it your quest to gin up kind of that energy. Oh, you know what? I did it again. I forgot to plug my shit in. Hold on. But I can't go dead because that sucks, and that's why it's like, bonk. Look, man, I'm gonna get this right eventually. Look, this is live. That's all right. Whatever. All right. So as I was saying about this consumption of this desire to kind of get, I guess, internet famous while they're in office. Again, when you're a public servant, you're expected to do certain things, and so that's why I'm not as big of a hypocrite as you might say. So he goes on to talk about how he basically says the truth is GOP elected officials don't answer to voters or leaders in Congress. They answer to radio talk show hosts who get ratings as extreme provocateurs and have no interest in solving the nation's problems. By the way, my pronunciation sucks. I'm not a communications major. I always do that with words. So, he goes on to talk about Cruz isn't just alone on his quest to do this. It's kind of a poison. Then he continues to talk about the Supreme Court Justice, Ginny Thomas. He talks about how he talks about Madison Cawthorn and his whole cocaine thing. He talks about how Putin, Trump basically asked Putin to do dirt, which was why he was impeached originally, or at least for obstructing justice and withholding aid, unfit for fucking president. They haven't even talked about that he's been doing this. They're kind of mum on it. They're just letting him say it, saying he's going to be the front runner, once in a while making a call, and one or two people on the fringe might say, hey, this was stupid. But for the most part, they're just kind of mum on it. McCarthy's really not criticizing Trump or saying, hey, that's a bad thing to be sucking up to Putin. And so you have this consistent, this whole thread of just kind of built around these lies. And now they're in power and they're doing the same shit, and they're not interested in anything but getting ratings and moving things forward. And so it's super helpful. You see what's happening at the school board level. You see what's happening with transgender rights. It's front and center. You see all the anti-voting bills that are across the country because of the lies. You see the don't say gay bills popping up. You see the abortion crazy stuff popping up because of now that you've deputized citizens in Texas, everyone wants to be a fucking, abortion hunter. Whatever. It's just fucking nuts. And so these are the things that you're hearing. Now you can say, well, Nate, that's in your own bubble. This is coming from a Fox News contributor that, is around all these folks, that's seeing all this stuff, that's hearing all this stuff, and he's validating it. And so, he's right in the middle of the storm, hearing these folks talk about their talking points and how they're ginning up their stories and what they're chasing. And he's realizing that as he goes on in the article, he just talks about how these folks just aren't equipped to govern anymore. They're not. And so I've been kind of really pushing for this whole fucking let's fix the GOP. And I'm not sure if it's possible. I mean, maybe this is where I have to, just fucking grin and bear it and fucking reach out to libertarians and say, just go do your fucking party, create a party that's not fucking crazy, and just go with it, and maybe just get rid of this current I talk shit on libertarians all the time because they're Pontius Pilate bullshit, but the point is, I mean, at this point I'd rather have those folks that are at least coming from some kind of some form of logic. It might not have good foundations, but they're at least kind of walking through a thought process. There's no end game thought process, of course, but at least they're not just talking about the dumb shit that the GOP is to just gin up fear and uncertainty and doubt. Now, I'm not saying that for all libertarians, because quite frankly, a lot of them do the same shit. But I'm just not convinced that there's any fixing going on with the GOP right now, and I don't think that the voters or the GOP base really sees it, and so I don't see how that gets better. I think things get worse, and it's not going to be good if they win the midterms. And that's not just fear, uncertainty, doubt. It's like you have all these people that don't know how to govern getting back in power, and it's just mind-boggling to me. I mean, they spent like sailors last time, and now, of course, if they spend like sailors, it's going to be all Biden's budget that's going to be blamed on him for the next fucking cycle. So it's just like, I'm sitting here working, thinking about stuff and doing work stuff, and then I get off and I'm looking at politics. I'm like, man, is this fucking just a quagmire of shit? And, then we've got real problems that aren't being solved. That's the biggest point. Again, I don't want to spend time talking about how shitty the GOP is. I'd love to talk about how they're going to implement Medicare for all, how they can slide us into a universal health care, how we can start talking about how all the empty properties across this country, I'm not saying you have to have homeless people move into your property. I'm just saying there's a lot of things we could do that are creative that might make sense and maybe make it equitable for everybody, even folks that have, to make it equitable for them to support this cause, whatever it may be. I've been thinking like long and hard about like this digital currency and how you can create wealth out of nothing. And what if you had some kind of currency that was built around, helping folks that you securitized homeless people's debt, or I don't know, something to create invisible. I mean, people are becoming billionaires on fucking virtual currency. So obviously we can make some demand for something, and now tie it to where it's publicly funding the homeless. And so now it gains value. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, something, come up with something. But nobody, when we're talking about things that have nothing to do with kind of policy, and we're focused on like the sanity of one party, it makes it tough to even come and have anybody talk about it. And by the way, that's why the press continues to focus on the wrong shit. And so anyway, so look, I'm going to wrap tonight. What time is it? Okay, cool. I wanted to be done by 11. So look, the end game's important when you talk about policy. I say this all the time. It's like a broken fucking record. Got to look at the end game. Then you also have to, see how these folks are playing this midterm. You're going to see, Democrats are quiet. They should be shouting at the top of their lungs about how gas prices aren't necessarily affected by the president opening up reserves, but more how OPEC works and market forces and everything else. Talking about how inflation could be caused by the injection or the loss of humongous amounts of revenue that just got stored overseas or done, kind of put into rich people's coffers, as opposed to actually, netting anything into the economy. So the economy was like, things were extracted, a whole trillion. I mean, that's trillions of dollars pulled out of the economy. It just kind of go. You think rich people just spend that shit. They don't necessarily. Poor people spend their money. Rich people hoard and buy dumb more shit and give it to other rich people. So it kind of stays amongst them. It's the facts, man. It's the fucking facts. So, these are things we can't talk about, but they're all going to play into the midterms. And, like I said, folks like Juan Williams, I like him. He's to me, when he's on film, he kind of like doesn't really come across as super aggressive. He's always getting battered down by everyone else. But I do like the fact that he's been really killing it lately on the Hill. And I'm not a fan of the Hill, by the way. When I stumble on the Hill, I'm always like, I look at a couple other places before I source anything from there. But this is opinion, and it kind of just matched a lot of what I've been saying in scripted form. Somebody wrote it, and for me, when I see something like this, where I've been talking about Joe Manchin and his bullshit, like a year ago, when I've been talking about some of this stuff, it just validates that I'm actually kind of, I'm at least talking about things that, just because they're talking about it doesn't make it important, but just means that these are concepts that are coming across that, finally other people are getting. And I think that narrative I've been painting is accurate. To me, this is an accurate painting. He's talking about the fact that the key to stopping the GOP may well be to understand their motivation. It isn't about ideology. It's about likes trending on right-wing Twitter. These kind of like succinct points are really what I've been saying, and that is this party has lost its way. There's no values there, and so they have the folks clinging to their wedge issues, and that's what's going to be the motivation to get their voters out for the midterms, and we're going to probably lose to them. When I say we, the country's going to lose to these folks that really have no idea or care, starve the beast, whatever the fucking crazy shit is of the day. They don't want to govern. They just want to own the lib and, ban things and give you personal freedom by restricting your rights. It's really bizarre. So, it's something that, how do we change hearts and minds? Well, if you're watching and you're conservative and you disagree with this, leave a comment, put yourself out there and say, this is why you disagree. These are real, these are like things that are going on. I guarantee you, if you come on this show and I ask you questions, you're going to come around to those same things that are talking points that are generated out of the bubble that you live in, as opposed to reality and what's really going on. So I'm just going to end with that. Look, it was a good day today at work. I'm really excited about the fact that, I'm going to be doing some cool stuff, but I'm also excited about the fact that, based on my new budgets, I'm going to be able to do some cool stuff here. So I appreciate you guys staying with me. I know I am back a couple blog posts, which is fine. I'm going to probably crank it out. You know how I like to put the pressure on myself and do it the last minute. But, it's been difficult to write because there's so many things. The kayfabe was my favorite, actually, and I wrote it, and I kind of just wanted it at the top for a while, too, because it really talks about the whole theater of this whole thing. And so, but anyway, if you don't know, I write a blog at smashtheparty.com/links. You can see all this the other places I post to. And we're on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and Facebook, and YouTube. Did I say YouTube? And then in the blog, go back and read some of those. Subscribe. There's a ton of free shit there. Obviously, I'd love for you to subscribe and pay a subscription. By the way, my subscribers are dope. But I will say, like, there's a lot of stuff in there that just kind of keeps coming around. It's like evergreen content. And so I think it's good, and I think it'll kind of help you understand where the fuck I'm coming from when I swear and get mad and pissed off and frustrated at, like, stupidity. And I'm not that smart. I think the one thing I will say that I have a gift for, and I think it's a gift, is I can kind of go in and out on perspective pretty quickly. So I can get really close to minutia on something. I also like see the big picture. And so kind of linking those two things together is why I'm kind of frustrated and pulling out my hair like, ugh, we're doing this dumb shit again. And we're going to end up with, a Congress that's not going to do anything. We're going to go backwards, and it's just frustrating to see the cycle happen over and over and over again. Then clean up, we have to clean up after the folks that are acting like stupid, dumbasses. And this is just like the data, and I know the data isn't interpreted this way with this kind of language, but I'm telling you, if you start looking at the facts and kind of the economies that were happening during those administrations, you're going to see a pattern that's going to make you think differently about conservatism, at least the folks that argued they were conservative. Anyway, that's all I got for tonight. Again, thanks for the love, everybody. You guys are awesome. Still engaging with a lot with my content. I've not been posting as much because I'm trying to figure out, I need to load it up kind of and get that stuff queued up, because I really don't want to be posting during the day when I'm working with what I'm doing. It's pretty important. By the way, what I'm doing is pretty awesome, and considering that company I work for is super progressive, and I love kind of what they're trying to do. And there's a lot of efficiencies of what we're doing here. And it's not necessarily just replacing jobs. It's actually making things work faster in a way. And one of the things I hated about software is you're always replacing jobs. And what we're doing, we're actually kind of saving money for folks that are to move things around the globe. And it's pretty cool. The money comes from like fees and blah, 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 all this stuff. I'm still learning, but I love my job and they're super progressive. And they said, you know, I can't be happier. And so I want to continue to support them with 100% during the day. But, you know, I told my significant other today, I said, look, my wife, I said, you know, I'm just charged up, and I definitely know that once I get no cadence that this is kind of, you know, going to fly, because I know how I am when I'm excited and productive. You know, when you're busy and you're doing a lot of things, you're more productive. So I'm kind of excited about that. Anyway, that's all I got. Thanks for tuning in. I will be back tomorrow at 10:30. And subscribe, like it, share it, comment, tell me I'm an ass. Tell me that you don't like my hat. Tell me I have too much dog hair on my face or some shit. But leave a comment. Engagement's where it's at. All right?